Bienvenue sur les ondes de Franc Masson. Mon nom est Masson et vous écoutez mon podcast dans le franc des yeux où est-ce qu'on essaie de se parler dans le blanc des yeux avec des invités et autant que possible avec un maximum de franchise. Et nous y sommes, c'est le dernier épisode de la saison 1, épisode numéro 17. Et je dois dire que ça me fait un petit pincement au cœur pour commencer. Bien sûr, c'est toujours la fin de quelque chose, mais en même temps, c'est un nouveau commencement, évidemment. Alors, qu'est-ce qui se passera après la saison 1? Eh bien, il y aura une saison 2 que j'ai honnêtement déjà entamé depuis 4 mois. J'ai travaillé vraiment fort pour ça. Alors, si jamais vous avez apprécié ce que je vous ai apporté en tant qu'image, en tant que feeling et qu'intention dans cette première saison, eh bien, je vous invite à rester à l'affût. Je ne sais pas combien de temps ça va me prendre parce que j'ai beaucoup de travail à faire pour mettre ça en un morceau dans cette deuxième saison, mais c'est quelque chose qui ne se discute pas tant que ça quand même dans nos médias alternatifs ici. Et j'ai nommé l'histoire du Québec et sa place dans l'histoire un peu plus géopolitique internationale en remontant jusqu'à la fondation des États-Unis. Et je dis le Québec, mais évidemment, dans ce temps-là, le Québec, c'était quoi? C'était le Canada et nous autres, les Québécois français, Canadiens français, on était les Canadians. Alors, on va parler un petit peu de tout ça en relation aussi avec, bien sûr, la situation actuelle, parce qu'en bout de ligne, on essaie de comprendre un peu où est-ce qu'on s'en va avec franchise sur le show ici. Donc voilà, alors aujourd'hui, pour ce dernier épisode, je suis extrêmement heureux, mais juste avant, je vais faire une petite mise en contexte. Dans tout ce qu'on a discuté, vous savez, moi, ce qui m'intéresse, c'est l'espèce d'image méta un petit peu. Ben, vous le savez peut-être pas, en fait, mais je vous l'annonce ici, si c'est la première fois que vous m'entendez le dire. J'aime l'image un petit peu méta de tout ce qui se passe. Donc, voir une méta, donc un petit peu de comprendre métapolitique, métaphysique, environnemental même, comment les choses, les sous-groupes s'imbriquent entre eux et entre elles et comment ça évolue tout ça dans le temps. C'est ce qui m'intéresse. Je ne prétends pas que je comprends ça, mais c'est ce qui m'intéresse. Alors, je m'amuse à discuter de ça avec mes invités. Voilà. Donc, dans le but de comprendre aussi une image que je n'ai pas discuté beaucoup dans tous les projets que j'ai faits depuis 2016, c'est l'aspect justice, l'aspect loi, l'aspect légal, l'aspect, mais paperasse aussi de toutes les lois, les règles qui nous entourent. Et ça a un impact, bien sûr, concret avec toute la situation pandémique qu'on connaît depuis 2 ans parce qu'on a été gouverné par décret, par règles, etc., sans qu'il y ait vraiment des lois qui se sont passées de façon démocratique. Les gouvernements gouvernent un peu comme ça le tente depuis un bout sous couverture, disons, ou en tout cas sous décret d'urgence sanitaire. On ne sait pas trop pourquoi, là, rendu en avril 2020, en mai 2020, en fait, on est le 5 mai aujourd'hui au moment d'enregistrer cette introduction. Alors, mon invité d'aujourd'hui, c'est quelqu'un qui a recherché tout l'aspect judiciaire et des lois depuis plus de 20 ans lorsqu'il lui est arrivé quelque chose dans sa vie en 2001. Et puis, c'est vraiment intéressant, lui, la conclusion à laquelle il est arrivé de son côté. C'est un Ontarien du Canada ici qui est arrivé, lui, avec une solution parce que selon lui, hein, et là, on parle en termes d'hypothèse, donc son hypothèse à lui, c'est que tout le système de justice, etc., les lois sur lesquelles on est dirigé, le système des cours, le barreau et tout ça, c'est tout un peu, entre guillemets, fake, dans le sens que c'est pas ça nécessairement qui devrait nous gouverner, nous, en tant qu'hommes, en tant que femmes, humains sur Terre. Évidemment, si vous avez écouté toutes sortes de médias alternatifs, peut-être que vous êtes tombé sur Amélie Paul et sa série avec Guylaine Langto ou Guy Adiès, etc. Moi, je vous invite à écouter ça. D'ailleurs, je vais mettre le lien de sa chaîne Odyssée et sa playlist dans les commentaires ici, je crois, pour que vous puissiez vous familiariser avec son point de vue à elle, parce qu'elle est arrivée avec des conclusions différentes, mais somme toute, il y a un ethos, disons, similaire autour de elle et de mon invité ici. Alors, évidemment, je trouverais ça très cool, moi, de faire des débats dans la vie et j'aurais aimé ça pouvoir mettre ces 2 personnes-là ensemble puis avoir une conversation à 3. Ça aurait été fascinant, mais bref, qui sait où le futur va nous mener. Donc, c'est de ça qu'on va parler aujourd'hui. C'est le dernier épisode et j'ai intitulé ça, voilà, Justice naturelle, parce que, bien sûr, l'angle global de mon truc, ça a toujours été la physique et les lois naturelles, bien sûr, du cosmos, ce qui nous gouverne potentiellement. Et donc, y a-t-il une justice qui pourrait être un petit peu plus en ligne avec ces lois naturelles-là ici qui sont perméables dans l'univers? C'est le sujet d'aujourd'hui. Juste avant de commencer le show, je veux vous dire merci du fond du cœur d'avoir été là pour tous ceux qui ont écouté en audio, ceux qui ont été sur n'importe quelle chaîne vidéo, Facebook, YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble. Salut à chacun et chacune de vous. Chaque visionnement est important. On est une petite gang ici, c'est relax, mais je vous apprécie beaucoup et les commentaires que j'ai en général sont toujours positifs et intéressants. Alors, merci à vous. Puis, bienvenue aux derniers qui ont été là. Peut-être suite au dernier épisode, notre ami M. Lavoie a partagé le truc. Donc, c'est un plaisir de vous voir. La gang peut-être un petit peu plus axée sur science, spiritualité, tout ça. Ben, moi, tout ce que j'ai fait depuis le début de ma chaîne, de mes chaînes, en fait, depuis 2016, ça a été toujours relié autour de ça. Donc, si jamais vous cherchez des gens qui parlent de ça, ben, peut-être que vous allez m'apprécier, mais peut-être que vous n'aimerez pas la face ou peut-être que vous n'aimerez pas mon style et tout ça, parce que je suis peut-être un petit peu plus intense que Marc-Alain, comme vous avez pu le voir ici. Bref, tout ça étant dit, je vais vous commencer le truc avec un petit moment de franchise qui sera mon dernier moment de franchise pour ce 17e et dernier épisode de la saison 1. Deux choses. Premièrement, franchement, pour être franc avec vous, en fait, je suis déçu parce que j'aimerais ça faire plus de trucs, plus de contenu et tout ça, mais je ne suis pas une personne super productive au niveau technique, dans le sens que je ne suis pas assez proficient, productif, en tout cas avec ce côté-là et tout ça. Et j'aime beaucoup plus passer le temps à essayer de comprendre les choses et tout ça que de faire du contenu. C'est tellement de temps, la mise en ligne et tout ça, que ça me fait chier moi-même, fait que je me sens un peu mal pour ça parce que j'aimerais ça en faire plus, mais en même temps, c'est pas comme si vous étiez des milliers qui me demandaient du contenu, fait que, c'est pas grave finalement, mais je le dis par franchise, pareil. Et deuxième chose, je suis vraiment frustré par rapport à l'épisode d'aujourd'hui sur un point, c'est que c'est un épisode qui va être uniquement en anglais. Et encore une fois, en termes de production de temps, faire les sous-titres, écoutez, c'est juste trop long, surtout avec le débit de vitesse avec laquelle parle mon invité aujourd'hui, puis la quantité d'informations qu'il y a comparé à l'autre épisode que j'ai traduit en sous-titres. Je n'ai pas été capable, je n'ai pas pu mettre le temps là-dessus. Honnêtement, ça va me prendre 5-6 semaines si je réussis à le faire. Mais mon objectif, c'est de faire la saison 2 en premier. Et après ça, de toute façon, toute la question de ce qu'on va parler aujourd'hui, c'est quelque chose qui est très, très d'actualité, mais je pense que ça va venir un peu plus tard dans la conscience collective. Je pense qu'on n'est pas tout à fait rendu là. Mais ça s'en vient. Fait que je pense que ce que je vais faire la saison 2. Et puis ensuite de ça, je vais probablement essayer de mettre les sous-titres s'il y en a qui ont envie d'écouter parler de ça puis qui parlent juste français ou pas assez bien anglais pour comprendre mon invité d'aujourd'hui. Et puis revenir puis le mettre après en ligne. Fait que s'il y a des gens qui veulent, ça va peut-être plus à l'automne parce que ça va être long. Fait que voilà, c'était mes moments de franchise. Et sur ce, encore une fois, ce fut une longue introduction, mais je suis prêt maintenant à vous demander d'accueillir avec moi mon invité et honnêtement à lui dire un grand merci du fond du cœur de s'être prêté au jeu et d'avoir accepté mon invitation. Il ne me connaissait pas du tout. Moi, je suis un gars de Québec qui communique avec lui en Ontario. Le gars, il parle avec du monde de partout sur la planète, tout le temps, dans ses trucs. Il aide des gens avec toutes sortes de casiers judiciaires, de dossiers en justice, etc., pour les aider à comprendre qu'est-ce qui se passe. Et puis, il est vraiment super occupé, mais il a été super généreux avec nous de donner 1h30 aujourd'hui. Alors, j'espère que vous allez être plusieurs à pouvoir comprendre l'épisode en anglais. Je vous dis encore une fois, merci d'être là. Et puis, bon 17e et dernier épisode de la saison numéro 1 du podcast Dans le franc des yeux. On s'en parle après. Cool. So let's just keep talking. Christopher James. So I just want to say thank you again for being here with us in Quebec. We're going to try to bring your knowledge and your wisdom and I guess the facts that you've gathered over your personal life over more than 20 years, I think, of researching and understanding, especially the legal system and how reality should be understood under that legal system historically. And up to this point right now, we're going into the end of February now. We're on February 21st, 2022. It's been 3 weeks of the truckers' convoy in Canada in Ottawa. About a week ago, the Emergency Act or emergency measure was declared by the federal government. So it's a very interesting state of affairs that we are in Canada and, of course, all over the world. And, sorry about that. I guess my camera is starting to turn off today. We'll see how it goes. All right. So we're going to try to understand through your point of view how things have evolved and what is important to understand for Canadians, and I guess people all over the world right now at this point in time, because what you're bringing yourself to the world as an approach, as a solution, is still not very widely, I guess, understood or spread, or widely spread, or enough to be able for us to take hold of it and enact into the world. So I'd like, first of all, So let's start with that, actually, because I wrote to you in the email. I said, thank you, sir, because I wanted to show respect, of course, as I was brought up. When you say Mr. or thank you, sir, it's like a mark of respect. So tell me, maybe just to start, why you said that let's not call people Mr. or sir or stuff like that, and then we'll go on from that.
Sure, Gabriel. Well, thank you so much, Gabe, for having me here today. And I would like to send my heartfelt love to all my fellow brothers and sisters in Quebec, and also any other people around this world that are listening to this broadcast. The words are very important, as Gabe was just talking about there. We'll just touch on it quickly. Mr., Mrs., sir, that's all a diminishing of your capacity, because in law, you are a man or a woman, and you only answer to your given name, which is, your first, your middle name. Your family name is actually something that already was in place before you came into this world. And now I'm going to demonstrate everybody very quickly that within under a minute here, I'm going to explain to everybody very simply, powerfully, in the solution moving forward, all in one go. What we're having here right now, Gabe, and I'm so grateful for this, what our world needs to have is a conversation that we've never had before, a very foundational, simple conversation. And this is the first part of the conversation. Every government around this world, Quebec, Canada, Ontario, Manitoba, British Columbia, the United States, Australia, these are all service corporations, full stop. No different than McDonald's or Burger King. So all you have to answer and understand is three simple questions. Does any man or woman that works for these service corporations, do they claim that you or I, Gabriel, or any other man in this world are property? No. Property is a powerful word in law. Okay. The second question you hit them with, well, then Justin Trudeau produced the contract that you have with the man that's standing before you, that you have jurisdiction over me, acting as a man as well. Justin Trudeau doesn't have a contract with any man or woman where he has jurisdiction over anyone. That means control in this country. And then the third question is simply, well, then produce the contract, Justin, that you or any agent or officer under your control have a contract with, again, I or we the people, where we relinquished our God-given unalienable rights to you to administrate over us. Again, treating us as if we're property. As soon as they answer no to all three of those questions, Gabe, every man and woman in the world needs to understand, in Quebec, right across this country, internationally, globally, that these people that are acting for these service corporations masquerading as government, nothing that they put pen to paper, nothing that they say applies to us. This is the conversation we've never had, and this is a foundational, powerful truth. So that is the first thing that people need to first and foremost recognize. That way you don't get caught up in all these emergency acts or these codes, these rules, these statutes, these bylaws, because these were all written by your fellow man and woman. So you just say, bring forward the man or woman that wrote that, because they've got to answer yes to those three questions. One of them, just one of them, that either I'm their property, I got a contract with them on the private side as a man or woman where I've relinquished my rights, or I've got a contract with the service corporation because everyone's acting in a role on behalf of the service corporation. That's what the government of Quebec is. It's a service corporation. That's what the political party, the Liberal Party, the PC Party, the NDP Party, they are all corporations. So simply ask those three questions, Gabe, and everybody else listening to this, you ask those three questions to any man or woman, from Justin Trudeau right down to the lowest level within their service corporation. Am I your property? Have I got a contract with you on the private side of relinquish my rights? Nope. Got a contract with the service corporation, Canada, Ontario, Quebec, that you rely upon to have jurisdiction over me. And the answer is no. And this is the big elephant in the room that people need to recognize. The other side of this is legal. Legal does not apply to a man or a woman, Gabe. Legal only applies to that which is incorporated. And that happens when we're born in a hospital. We are not born a person. We're born a man or a woman. It's been in front of us all our lives, but we've never been shown and understood this documentation that was given to us. And the evidence of this unlawful, what's called a trespass, an unlawful conversion that happens when we're moments old, born in a hospital, is the birth certificate. You and I did not create that birth certificate, Gabe. That was created by service corporations. Ultimately, it's the Queen, the Pope, and the monarch, or pardon me, the Queen, the Pope, and the central bankers. They put this system together, Gabe, before you and I came into this world, before anybody that's alive today came into this world. That's how long this has been around. In the 1930s, when they rolled out the birth certificates, that was the end of our public courthouses where a man or a woman was being recognized as a man or a woman when they walked in. Now you're only seen as a legal person. And that's why you need to understand it's very, very simple when you understand that all these people work for a service corporation. You can take those 3 questions now, Gabe, and move that over to a man or woman that's acting as a magistrate. Are they not your fellow man? Absolutely. They going to claim your property? No. You got a contract with them when they're wearing that black robe? Nope. Because they're representing a service corporation at that time. Well, then do you have a contract with them on the private side when they're not acting as a justice or a judge or a justice of the peace, where you've relinquished your unalienable rights, where they have jurisdiction, control over you? The answer is no. That's why you need to see all these people that wear these black robes. They're corrupt little maggots of a private society that has been stealing from the people from a very long time. And all of this is coming to an end very soon. And it's through the grace of God, through COVID-19, Gabe, that it's allowed us to bring this truth finally forward, because everybody's seeing that something's very wrong in our world, and everyone's trying on various different levels, legal, whatever, but no one understands these foundational truths. You walk Justin Trudeau into any public courthouse and you post those 3 questions to him, he's going to answer no to all 3 of them. The minute that he does that, that proves to everybody in this country, in this world, that nothing that he or any agent or officer under his control for the Service Corporation Canada put pen to paper applies to us. That's why this theater of coming up this week that they're voting on this Emergencies Act, that doesn't apply to we the people. This is the theater that's going on that we must undo. And it's very simple to do.
Well, that's a great summary of all the things, and it sounds so simple. That's the beauty of it, and that's also the complexity of it from my point of view, because I've had my own I'm at the end of my 30s now, and I'd say I've always been like a seeker myself, but especially it took me like 10 years to get up to that point where I can understand what you're saying. And I came to it through the science, right? So I started to understand like the wrong things with the science, how the body worked really, which was completely the reverse as I learned in school and when I was younger, and the physics as well. And then I fell into the law systems and the history that led to us misunderstanding what's going on. So how do you think, how did you personally actually start to understand the difference between legal and lawful? And when did it become clear to you that what we consider as governments, which should be elected by the people, were actually service corporations? So when did you get that? And how can we help people understand that it's the truth? Because we can say this, but as long as people don't understand how it worked or when it happened or how it happened, maybe, and I know you can't give us like a 2-hour history class, but do you have like a few points in time where you know that how it happened, and when people can just gather, oh, so it switched at one point, or they're just not what we've been led to believe that they are, and we can like attack them with these questions? So how did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I stand on the shoulders of giants. There's an incredible woman in the United States called Anna Von Reitz. She's a past common law judge. Her website is annavonreitz.com, and she has probably well over 3,000 PDFs that are there. Again, her way of bringing the truth forward is she's been very detailed in showing all the way along how things got manipulated. But she said one word, 2 words actually, about 4 years ago, I heard her say for the first time, and that's what really kicked everything on for me. I got in this position because of an enormous wrong and harm that happened to my family. I was financially destroyed by people that were supposed to be providing, again, good faith and duty services to me. I had a $1.5 billion initiative launching in the music and entertainment industry. Right. So when that happened to me, I wanted to find out what was going on. And I always believed, I didn't know the difference between legal and lawful. So when you start to delve into it, you understand that legal, it starts right in the Bible, Job 32:21. Everybody look that up in the King James Version. They're actually pulling it out of all the digital copies now. It says, let no person, there's that word, person's a trick word. Let no person be placed upon you, nor are you to accept any titles. So when is this person created, as we talked about a second ago? The person is created when we're born, right? In a hospital. That's what the birth certificate represents. You don't own that. That's not your birth certificate. My birth certificate, when I first got it, was laminated. And at the very bottom of it, I never understood. It said Canadian banknote outside of the bonded paper that it's on. I'm going, what's that about? Well, then years later, I looked into it. You can go to my website. There's 4 very simple, short foundational videos people can watch. And it educates you on what that birth certificate represents. That's a legal person that was created on behalf of the Service Corporation, in my case, Ontario, to provide benefits and services to me if I wish to use it. And this is why our world has been so convoluted, because when you've opened up a bank account, when you've bought property, when you've bought a house, a car, whatever, what identification did you use? You use the government ID. Yep. So you've put them on title for everything, and you're the sucker that's paying for everything. This is the legal world and how it works. The word law is very powerful. You know, we want to start from the beginning. The word law isn't a pretty word, Gabe. It stands for 3 jurisdictions: land, air, and water. Lawyers are not taught this. Liars, as I call them, because they're taught process to basically continue moving this, this deception against the mind of man in our public courthouses. Because when you access a public courthouse, you are not seen as a man or a woman. You are seen as that legal person. That's only that these court. Remember, you take Ontario out of the way, the Ontario Superior Courts, and put McDonald's there. It's the McDonald's Superior Court. Imagine if you walked into McDonald's Superior Court, which is supposed to be a public courthouse, which means it's allowed to provide access for every man and woman to move a claim, not a complaint. Complaint is in the legal world. A claim against any man or woman that trespasses against you. Who is the man or woman then we go to, Gabe, in that public courthouse that can deny you that right? Nobody. Every man and woman in there, from the janitor right up to the top chief justices, they have what? Duties and obligations, because they're acting in a role on behalf of a service corporation. Their duties and obligations do not trump the rights of a man or a woman. They are all our public servants. But because we've been watching television all this time, and you see in these police shows that the man that wears the black robe, he has all this power that he wields, a control or whatever. This has been all part of the intentional compromising of the consciousness of man. But when you answer those 3 questions, it always comes back to them. It doesn't matter who you interact with in this world, Gabe. You ask them those 3 questions. Am I your property? Have I got a contract with you on the private side as a man or woman? I've relinquished my rights, or the service corporation you're representing right now. And when they say no to all 3 of those, again, I repeat it, then nothing that man or woman says to you has any jurisdiction control over you. Same with the CRA, the taxation system. It's all based on fraud. You go and look at the tax bills that you get, and you're going to see that your name is in all capital letters on it. That's the same entity that was created when you're born. You see, it has nothing to do with you. Now, we can go down another rabbit hole, which I don't want to. It's not a rabbit hole, but the actual creation of money. The long and the short of it is, in 1934, Canada was the only country in the world that had its own public bank. Right. The Bank of Canada was by and for the people. And then Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's father, committed massive treason in 1973 and sold us out with those patents. People need to understand what happened in that moment. Those patents are the people's property, and that allowed us to create money that they gave to the provincial governments, the municipal governments, interest-free, to build up our infrastructure, our roads, our hospitals, our schools. That's how a country handles itself when it is properly and set up correctly from a financial aspect. But we've never been set up in the courts correctly as a lawful. It's always been this legal world. And that's why you always hear that lawyers say, or when you get in front of these people wearing the black robes, they say, do you have representation? Is there a lawyer that's going to be representing you? That's a trick word, represent. You got to divide it in half, not quite half, but separate the RE and then the rest of it. Represent. That's what lawyers do. Okay. Lawyers, the entire bar society is a private society you and I do not belong to. It was created no less than a mercenary group, I guess, on behalf of the central banks and the Queen and the Pope, to go into these courthouses and continue this massive theft on we, the people. So what a lawyer actually does is he represents you. And now you should all know from what we just talked about in that very short conversation, what they're representing you as. They're representing you as that legal person that was created when you were born in a hospital, that you had no consent, no knowledge of. Your mother and father didn't know what documentation they were signing in the hospital. And this is the colossal level of constructive fraud that is occurring right around this world. And that's how simple this is to turn, because there's a man by the name of Reiner Fuellmich, and he's got these grand juries going right now, which is incredible. And he's told the world the judiciary is completely corrupt. So he's doing it like in a public theater so that everybody can at least see the evidence that's being brought down and laid forward. It's beautiful. But he said himself, we the people have to restore this judiciary system correctly and properly. And that means the legal world goes bye-bye. The bar's finished. It's going to be liquidated into oblivion. All these people that are wearing the black robes, Gabe, they are liable like you would not believe to we the people, because they have been intentionally, under the color of law, stealing from us and trespassing against us every single time we've walked into these public courthouses, providing that no man or woman has caused wrong or harm. We're not talking about murder. We're not talking about someone beat somebody up, all right? That is a severe trespass. And my position is, I don't give a rat's ass whether you're in the legal world or the lawful world. You hold those people accountable. But we've got to this point right now in this world with all the steer that's being rolled out, all these police in Ottawa, they're demonstrating these horrific acts. It's because ignorance is the number one enemy in all of the hearts and minds of our fellow man. You give them this truth that I've just given to you, where they understand the difference between legal and lawful, as I've given to the police now. The police have been lied to their entire careers. They've been acting against people, acting as a policy enforcement agent for a service corporation. That's what you have to understand. Codes, rules, statutes. Go and pull up the Highway Traffic Act. Go and pull up the Justice Act. Go and pull up any of these acts that were created by people from the service corporation, and nowhere in it are you going to find the word man or woman, Gabe. You're going to find the word person.
Persons, yeah.
And that's it. And you need to understand, it's like McDonald's creating a court system, and then they're dragging you into their court. When you walk into their court, oh no, you're not seen as the man or woman anymore. You're under their jurisdiction because they created documentation when you were born, unbeknownst to you. How far do you think that would fly in our courthouses if people knew it was going on? And this is the beauty of this truth finally coming forward, because what we require right now is 1,000 police officers to stand with me that are active, that understand these very simple core foundational truths, those 3 questions. And then there's only one other question that's going to get asked once we access that public courthouse. See, I can't get into the courthouse right now because the bar's locked it down. They're doing all these kangaroo Zoom courts or whatever. And if you try and go to the courthouse, they've got a handful of people that are providing security that will not let you into the building. What are they going to do when I show up with 1,000 police officers armed? And I've got 50,000 people outside that courthouse as well. You better believe that they're going to open up those doors, because that's a public courthouse. And then when I walk into that courthouse, I or any other man or woman that understands how to move claim in court is simply going to go to the court clerk. You're going to summon every man and woman in that courthouse to that courtroom, especially the robed ones. When everybody appears, I'm going to ask those same 3 questions. You might be getting a little tired of this, Gabe, but this is how simple and powerful it is. I'm going to ask the same 3 questions to these people that wear the black robes. Who here claim my property? No one's going to say that. Who here has a contract with me on the private side that I've relinquished my rights and you have jurisdiction over me when I come into this public courthouse? They don't have that. Well, then produce the contract, because they're all working through a service corporation. Produce the contract with the service corporation you're representing right now, wearing those black robes, that I've relinquished my rights to you. They don't have it. In that moment, Gabe, the entire world is going to see how a man accesses a public courthouse, or a woman, and now he's established court. And it will be the James Court that I've established. And then I bring my claim forward that Justin Trudeau and them are involved in genocide. And I have the evidence bearing witness, and under penalty of death, I will put that claim before the court with the evidence. And then there's only one other question that has to get asked, because the warrants will go out in that moment for Justin Trudeau, Doug Ford, every premier, every health minister, every attorney general across this country. The warrants are going to go out for their arrest. They're going to be brought into court. And those same 3 questions are all going to be asked under oath and affirmation, Gabe. And they're all going to answer no to it. And then after they answer that, then everybody knows everything they've been doing all these years to us. They had no jurisdiction. They were acting unlawfully against us. And then the 4th question, and only question that remains, produce the evidence that COVID-19 SARS-2 was purified. As you had Christine Massey on here last week or whatever. That's the only question that's required. Because once you prove that this so-called virus that caused this pandemic never existed, then it's over. Everything that they rolled out after they started to launch this whole theater, this narrative of COVID-19, is all based on a lie. The lockdowns end, the masks end, the mandates end, the vax pass ends. All of this theater, all of this destruction that these people in law enforcement that are committing against the people right now in Ottawa stops. And that's how powerful this is.
That's awesome. So we're going to talk a bit more about the Fulmich Investigative Committee and the whole science virology thing a bit later. But I want to ask you maybe a couple more questions about the solution, and maybe put it into a few examples, just so that I can understand it better, and people, because I've been following you for a lot of years, but just like here and there, because when you're trying to understand, you have so many things to try to research, and I'm personally like of the meta perspective. I like to be like up high and understand how pieces of the puzzle fit together. That's my personal point of view on things. I really try to understand where things are going, more at the energetics and the physics level. But once you get into this region of the whole thing, like the legal, lawful thing, it can get very difficult to spin your mind and trying to see it as you do now, so clearly and concisely. So let me just ask you 2 questions. Like the first one would be like, when you say like you get into the court, you ask your questions, and if you have your 1,000 officers with you and everything, and it's now a public court, right? So what's the difference between the court being like the court of the corporation, right, and being public? Is it just simply by your own actions of being there asking these questions, and when the answer is no, then it becomes your or the public's court? Or is there anything else that needs to be involved in there to to transform that from being the corporation's court to our court.
Right. Well, there's only, again, the word is jurisdiction as we talk about, and the jurisdictions, the three are land, air, water. So the bar operates on admiralty maritime law. That's water. That's the sea. That's contract law. We, the people, we were born on the land. Okay. We are uphold to the common law. That's why it's called a common law country. It's not called a common legal country. It's a common law country. And you say, well, where's this law, Chris? Well, it's the law that's unwritten. It's the law that resides in your heart that came from our creator. You and I gave no difference.
Common law. So do you make, sorry to interrupt, but do you make a difference between when you say that this is the inner or the natural moral law that we are born with, for example, which could be translated as like our God-given rights, I guess, or the God-given morality that's inherent into all of the human beings on the earth. So do you make a difference between common law and what some people call natural law, or is it the same thing, or do you see that as different terms and different? And I'm sorry because I'm making a small parenthesis, but we'll finish the question right after.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because this is what's been coming up a lot lately at my end. People are asking, well, what's the difference between natural law and common law?
Right.
So let me make it perfectly clear. It's all part of the process that when you go into this public courthouse, and I'm not just going and speaking. I should have clarified that. I'm going to have paperwork filed, right, where I'm making the claim of genocide that Justin Trudeau does with my evidence. And then there's the questions that they get asked. So when I go into that public courthouse in that capacity, it's very important that people understand that you're not under the processes that are in there for a legal system that are within that court. You're standing above it, because when we came into this world, Gabe, God created man and woman. And then man and woman, we are the creators of this world. We are all equal under the law, under our creator's law. You know, the only part that I look to the Charter and Freedom of Rights, right? Again, it's a charter for a service corporation, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. These are all pieces of paper that have no jurisdiction over a man or woman, unless you've consented to it, unless your wet signatures on it that you've signed to it. And again, you can still rescind that if in any way or form something was kept from you, hidden, that caused fraud or caused you wrong or harm. So this is why people need to understand, when we come into this world, Gabe, we have no paper attached to us. And that's the position that I stand in right now, okay? It's not so much as a moral thing. We know the difference between right and wrong. And that's why the three powerful words I teach, trespass, property, and who, is that when you are dealing with any man or woman that trespasses against you, you have a right to move that claim, not a complaint, simple claim that Bob here broke my window or did something. I tried to settle with him on the private side. He wouldn't. I'm going to move my claim in court into that public courthouse. And when you move that claim into that courthouse, we are the highest law, the highest court of this land. The Supreme Court of Canada is just an arm of a service corporation, Canada. Remember, understand the hierarchy. Man and woman were born in this world, and then we went and supposedly created government. And then governments went and created our courts, police, justices. Then they created the legal person. See where you would stand in the hierarchy? If you accept being this person in their world that's been created, then you have no rights, right? You are bound by all these, dictates that they've created for the policy for these corporations. But when you stand above that and you enter that courthouse in the correct capacity, the judges can't stand that. They're terrified of it, because if you hold court, it would be the James court. My court, the law that gets brought in is the claim, actually the truth. That's what the law really is. It's the truth that you're bringing in against a man or woman that's trespassed against you. That's what the law is. And you're going to produce that evidence before a jury of your peers, and they will decide whether your claim be true or not. It's that simple. But the problem is that we have the society that's operating in our public courthouses that has this process. I'm glad you brought this up, because it's called, ready, the Rules of Civil Procedure. Right. These rules, that changes out in British Columbia, they call it the Supreme Court Civil Rules. Well, these rules of civil procedure, this is what all of our public courthouses are operating under through a society we do not belong to called the bar. So what did we just do a month ago? We sent out the FOIs finally, because I went right up the full chain of command of all the chief justices across Canada on multiple cases. I said, produce the evidence. Again, these words on a piece of paper called the Rules of Civil Procedure, and civil is a trick word. There's lots of trick words in the legal world. Civil means Roman. Okay. It's Roman law that's going on there, Roman procedure. So I asked them all, produce the evidence where these rules of civil procedure apply to I, a man. They acquiesced after about 20 communications. So we took it up a notch again. Christine and I just a little over a month ago, we filed an FOI, Freedom of Information request, into the Attorney General. Remember, it's a man that's simply acting for a legal department who's been given this glorious title, Attorney General, as if it's supposed to scare you, right? It's no different than the top lawyer for McDonald's or Burger King. You got to start wrapping your head around the simplicity of what's going on here.
That's awesome.
And then you understand that these people have no jurisdiction control over you. So when we sent these FOIs out, Gabe, this is great. I didn't get to tell anybody about this yet or on my show, is that we got a response back finally. And it clearly stated that they have no records, that the rules of civil procedure apply to we the people. And then they tried to flip it around saying, but we cannot provide you legal advice. If you're no, we never asked you for legal advice. We asked you to produce the evidence that those rules of civil procedure apply to we the people. And now we've got it in writing back from the Attorney General of Ontario, Doug Downey, his office, that the rules of civil procedure do not apply to we the people. Boom. That is huge. Because now when we go to these public courthouses, these bastards cannot block us from moving our paperwork. When I file my paperwork, you never, ever, ever, ever use their forms that are in those courthouses. Why? Because that's in a legal realm. You create your own paperwork. There's examples on my sites how to write you can see it says the James Court at the Superior Court of the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. It doesn't say the Ontario Superior Court of Justice at the top. Remember about the hierarchy we talked about? Man, woman, create a government. Yep. It's the same how your paper, how it has to work for you. That's why it's called paperwork. Right. So you establish the jurisdiction at the top. It's the James Court. I'm holding court at a public courthouse called the Ontario Superior Court of Justice, right? At this location. Here's the people that have trespassed against me. Here's my claim that I've made against them. And this is the remedy that I'm seeking, the justice. Right. And it's very, very simple to do. It's because we've never been taught this. Everybody knows. Were you taught about law in school when you grew up? No. Never. You talk about money, the creation of money, or how to handle your finances? No. They never teach us all this stuff from the time we were born into this world till you're, even in your teenage years. Everything is for us to supposedly figure out. But by that time, their consciousness has been corrupted through the television, the radio, and everybody believes that how things are working in this world. And they don't know it's all based on fraud. But the good part of this, Gabe, is it's very simple to correct all of this because we've all understood how these core pillars of foundations work in our world, from justice to finance to health. Now we correct it with this foundational truth that we're not property of these people. They don't have a contract, and we need to get control of our monetary system again. It's going to change the creation of money again back for the people of Canada. Every single dollar that's been taken from us from this service corporation called the CRA was all based on constructive fraud. All of that is going to come back into our country. We're talking trillions of dollars, all right, that's going to come back because all of that money went to the Pope, the Queen, and the central bankers. Same for every other country around the world. That's why this moment is so huge, brother. It's so huge. And it's that one simple truth. When you understand those three questions and you're able to wield them powerfully and honorably, because I don't promote violence. Right? I don't have to get mad or upset with these people. I can be pissed off about it. But at the end of the day, what I'm doing here is honorable. It's lawful. It's being done in peace and with love. And it's very powerful. And once everybody has this conversation and we raise the consciousness of understanding what is going on here, that these courts, how they've been corrupted through this deceit that occurs with us when we're born, that we're not a legal person and that we are a man or woman only. And we understand that unless there's a verified claim in a court that we've trespassed against a man or woman, or there's a contract that's being brought forward that we're in breach of, then we have no business going into these courts. There's no appeal processes. There's none of these other things that happen. These are all under the rules of civil procedure. And that's when you're going to see the bar, which we do need the bar for when you have large corporations and they have these very difficult, contracts that they're creating with another service corporation. Say it's the two auto companies like Ford and GM, and they're entering into some sort of manufacturing deal or whatever. That I could only imagine would be incredibly complicated. That's what a lawyer's there for. They're there for contract law. But they're not there to walk you into court. When you're being charged, it's not you. Use a trick word too. When you're having any codes, rules, or statutes applied to you, right? That is basically the service corporation McDonald's that wrote all this policy, service rules, and codes, and they're applying it to that legal person they created when you're born. And they want you to accept that you're that legal person. And when you stand outside of that saying, no, you do not have the correct party here before you, and unless, again, you ask those three questions to them, to everybody in the court. Right. And then you say, well, where's the verified claim in this court? I've trespassed, causing wrong or harm. 99% of the time, there's no claim before that court. For example, I'll give you, I got to write back this other lady, but my cousin, he came back through the border there about a month and a half ago. He was living in Mexico. He flew to Dallas, so he didn't have to do the swabs and that. He could walk right across the border. If he flew into the United States, he was going to get all this testing done, and he knew enough not to do that. So what did he do? He walked across the border in Texas. He drove his car all the way to the Peace Bridge in Niagara Falls. He got out there, left the car there, and then he walked across into Canada. Well, what happened when he came into Canada? What do these people at the service corporation, the border agents, do? They presented him because he wouldn't submit to a COVID test and he wouldn't submit to any type of quarantine, going to a hotel or whatever. They hit him with a fine for $7,000. Okay. So most people freak out about that. Now, he tried to handle it initially. He obviously contacted me right when he got it. And he was, they were immediately all over him, sending him a document saying that you are going to appear on this day at this courthouse. We just want you to commit to that because we don't know when we're going to get to you, type of thing. And if you don't sign this piece of paper, then the judge is going to find you guilty. So that's all just threats, baseless threats when you understand the simplicity of it. He was given just like me and you. If I gave you a bill for $7,000, the first thing you should be saying to me is, well, who do I owe this debt to, Chris? Do I owe it to you? And I'd say, well, no, you don't owe it to me. Well, then who? See, it's those three powerful words I teach: property, trespass, and who. Who is always brought up a lot. So we simply wrote a letter. Again, I had my cousin get a hold of whoever the top man or woman was. They didn't want to give it at first. That's operating out of this courthouse that's taking care of all these border tickets that are going on, right? All this fraud. Once we got her name, we CC'd her on the communication to Doug Downey, right? The attorney general, because he's responsible for all these people. Ultimately, they're under his service contract. So I wrote to Doug and we said, hey, Doug, on behalf of my cousin, I received this ticket on this date claiming that there's a debt of $7,000 that is now due. And then it's three questions you hit him with. I require the name of who claims this debt be due, who claims this debt be true, and who claims this debt is past due. Otherwise, produce the contract, which you rely, Doug Downey or agent or any agent or officer within your service corporation, that you're relying upon that this debt be true. Failure to do that, and this was his third time he had written to them as well, sent them notices, communications. They didn't respond the first two times. When they don't respond the third time to your notice, and you do this very quickly, you do this all about 3 days apart. You hit them with a notice one day, give them 2 or 3 days to respond, then you hit them with the second notice, 2 or 3 days, then you hit them with the final notice, the third one. As soon as they got the final notice, if they have not responded or produced the evidence, A, who's the man or woman that claims owe a debt, or produce the contract, as simple as that's written, then you have a tacit agreement with them. And a tacit agreement means that they basically that they've basically no, I don't need to take it. It's so basically that's what's gone on. So that communication, we sent that out a month and a half ago, and my cousin hasn't heard a word back from him. Right, and he's not going to, because they're never going to pull him into court. They pull him into court, they're committing fraud upon the court. Right? There's no man or woman that's claiming that he owes a debt. See, it always comes down to a man or woman. You don't allow, like when you see these, the CRAs taking such and such to court or whatever. Really? Well, I require the CRA to appear. See, the CRA is not a man or a woman. It's a fiction. And then in the legal world, you say, I require the CRA to press the record. That means that they're going to speak viva voce in open court, and they're going to put on the record that this man over here owes me a debt based on some contract or agreement that we have. And here's my evidence for it. The CRA doesn't have that with anybody. It's a colossal level of theft and fraud that's occurring against we the people. And this goes right down to your local property taxes as well. Now, I know, Gabe, a lot of people hear this. They go, oh, my God, if we didn't have all this, then we wouldn't have all these services. No. You have to take a step back. You've got to understand the creation of money. When we are creating money and all this theft and wrong and harm that's going on, well, we're talking about trillions of dollars coming back into our coffers. We are going to have enough money to pay for the police for the next 100 years. Okay, to pay for all our services. There's going to be no taxation required for the people. And then if we find that we do need some sort of a support, well, I'm sure that we're all big enough people that we can figure out a way to do it, that it does not, again, create this unlawful taxation against the people. So it's a beautiful moment, Gabe, that we're at right now. And it's really those three questions. When everyone understands who they are, then they understand the relationship. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a chief of police, right? He works for a service corporation. Does he claim your property? Nope. You got a contract with him on the private side that he's got jurisdiction over you? Nope. Or any man or woman acting as a police officer? Halton Regional Police, where I live in Burlington? Nope. They're not going to produce that contract. Well, then the only one that remains is the contract I have with the service corporation, Halton Regional Police. Have they got it? Where I've relinquished jurisdiction? No. And I mean, no disrespect, but in law, all of these people walking around with guns, they're glorified mall cops. They don't understand the difference between legal and lawful. And that's the foundational truth. When they get that in their heart, then they'll understand, oh my God, I can't be doing any of this to my fellow man. That's why I operate when I go on the public roads. I go from point A to point B with my property without a license. You don't require a driver's license to access the public roads. If you cause any wrong or harm on those public roads, well, then that's what the courts are for. You're going to be held accountable and liable. But other than that, you have every right to access that public road and move peacefully from point A to point B with your fellow man or woman. That's it. So that's what I'm saying. The police have been lied to, Gabe. It's the foundational lie, that truth that happens when we're born that no one's been shown. Because just imagine if we had all been told the difference between legal and lawful all our lives. We understood how this money was originally created by the Bank of Canada. We understood that these people wearing the black robes, they are our public servants, unless they come forward and answer yes to those three questions. See how simple that is? So we're at a point right now that we know we've been lied to. Genocide is occurring not only in this country, but around the world surrounding this COVID-19 lie. So what is the solution? We simply move court, claim in court, I'll move the James Court into that public courthouse with, like I say, 1,000 police officers and 50 or 60,000, 100,000 people outside the courthouse. Once we get into that courthouse, people are going to see multiple things in real time. They're going to see how a man or woman accesses the public courthouse correctly outside of using all their forms in that. And then they're all going to bear witness that these people wear the black robes. They're our public servant. And then they're going to sign these warrants out for Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford and all of them like that. And when that happens, that is when the rubber really hits the road. Because when they get brought into court, they've got to be able to show the world that this COVID-19 SARS-2 existed, that they actually withdrew it. They have the evidence. They withdrew it from a man or a woman, and they purified it in a dish. And then from there, they were able to create testing for it, which they based all of these draconian actions that they've been doing on us. See, it's that one truth. It stops everything going on in Ottawa, everything that's going on in Quebec. Right? There's no more, when we don't protest public servants that are supposed to be providing good faith and duties and services. We hold these people accountable. That's what our public courthouse is. So this is where all this theater that's going on in Parliament Hill, it doesn't mean shit. Okay. It doesn't mean shit to what's jurisdiction over we the people. What matters is that we haul these people, because remember, every MP, every MPP across this country, they're liable to us for treason for the last 2 years. They've been allowing this false scenario to have been rolled out over the people, and they've caused enormous wrong, harm, and death, from the elderly to the children to suicides are off the charts. They've destroyed the family units. They're destroying everything that we hold so dear in this country. And that's not going to be solved in a corrupt building called the House of Corruptness, not the House of Commons. No, it's going to be solved honorably, lawfully, and peacefully in that public courthouse. And that's what we need to do. Once we do this with 1,000 police officers, more, it should be much more than that. And the frontline responders, firefighters, and nurses and everything. And then the people, when everybody sees us gather around that courthouse, we're not there protesting. We're there to bring a truth, a claim into that courthouse for the world and our country to see. And when that light is brought into that courthouse, look out, Gabe. It's going to permeate right around this entire world, because it's the same trespass. It's the same corruption that's happening at every public courthouse with every government around the world. It's this very same foundational truth. And that's why I've kept it simple, because it took me a long time, 20 years to get to this point, going down lots of rabbit holes, kicked around in the courts. And then once I started finally understanding, words are like pieces on a chessboard, and you must use the correct words always. That's why you stick to a handful of words. Property covers everything: your hopes, your dreams, your flesh, your blood, your rights. Okay. Any physical items that you buy. And then trespass. Trespass covers everything. Bob or Susie breaks your window, breaks your car, steals your wife from you, whatever, right? They do any type of damage to you. If they're a breach of a contract, that's what trespass covers. Then the only other word you have to ask when you're standing in these so-called courts is, who's moving this court? We just had it expressed on the record there about a month and a half ago with Jamie Russo, a tattoo guy who was helping him. We got the fourth set of judge that was Justice of the Peace, a woman acting for the Service Corporation. She finally said on the record, Gabe, because he said, well, who's moving this court? And she said, well, the Ontario government. He says, well, that's a fiction. He says, I require the plaintiff, he's speaking their legal word, to appear and press the record. Dead silence. She was hooked. She says, well, they can't appear. And then she just proceeded to move the court forward. So he just asked her, who's moving this court? And she said it was a fiction moving this court. And then when he confronted her and proved it on the record that a fiction can't move anything, it has no arms or legs, flesh or blood, and there's no contract he has with the Service Corporation Ontario, then she moved the court. Because that's what these lawyers are meant to do, and judges. They have to keep this game going. They can't let the sheep out of the pen. Once this truth gets out, it's game over for all of them. And unfortunately, that truth is finally coming.
Amazing. All right. So let me just maybe summarize to see if I understood correctly. But the first thing, so I'm not sure I got actually like the simple or the summary of the difference between how you perceive the difference between common and natural law. So can you just maybe get back on it? Just so is there a difference in your eyes or not in the end?
No, there isn't. Remember,
there isn't. Okay.
When you're saying the word law, and law is the truth. Okay.
That's it. Okay.
So if you're walking into a public courthouse, I don't care if you call it common law, natural law, you're bringing a claim of truth in. That's the law. Okay. Don't attach a name to it, whether it's common. I just use common because it's common between your fellow man.
Okay. Perfect.
But when you move into that court, Gabe, and you've got a claim that someone has trespassed against you, that's the law that you're bringing into the court. It's your law. And you're showing in front of your people, this man or woman had no right to trespass against me. That's how simple it is. See, you get out of the word games, because people start arguing, oh, natural law is higher than common law. No. When you walk into that public courthouse, you are the law. You are moving your court, right? Because someone has trespassed against you. And it's that simple.
So that's the second point I wanted just to make sure I got it. So actually, the question I had was what's the difference between the public court and the private or the legal court? So actually, you're the one making the difference, right? You're sizing your own law, you're bringing it in, and you're advising them prior with the paperwork, which states black on white that it's your court now. It's your public court with your law.
Correct jurisdiction.
Represent
in the correct jurisdiction. They see what it is. And that's great that you bring that up, because you have to understand that the bar, right? A society.
Yeah, it's very important because there's steps, right? And if you want to understand the principle, sometimes some people, for me, that's how I work. I need to, okay, what's the mechanism? How does it work? Oh, okay. Like with these concrete steps, that makes sense now. I can visualize the thing right in the real world.
Yep. Just remember, the bar is a service corporation. They're providing legal services to people if they wish to use them to act in a person capacity. So, right. They've got their processes, they've got everything. This is what they're offering. It's like putting up a big, for sales, a sales sign in a store window saying, this is what we're offering you. This is what we use, the rules of civil procedure, appeal processes. We do all this. These are the fees and that we charge. It's a business model that they've rolled out onto the world. You don't have to use their business model to move a claim in court against a man or woman that's trespassed against you out here in the public, because those people, they don't have any firsthand knowledge of it. Are they involved in it? No. So that's what it revolves around, is that we, the people in this world, it's time we put on the big boy and big girl pants and we actually step up and act like a man or a woman. The problem is we've never been taught or shown the difference between a man. I would leave here today. I said, I met this great person today, Gabe. We had a great interview or whatever. Well, you and I know, Gabe, I'm talking about the man that's in front of me, the flesh and blood. I'm not playing any games here. But when you use that word person in a court, right, that's a totally different jurisdiction. That's a totally different language that's being used there, legalese. And that's why when you go and type up the Highway Traffic Act or any of the Justices Acts, the Family Acts, type in the search word for man or woman, you're not going to find it anywhere. You're most likely not going to find the word people anywhere, but you're going to find the word person. And now you understand what's going on, right? And that's how you shut down the family courts. You require them, you challenge jurisdiction, because if they've been operating in a Admiralty maritime law legal world, and that legal world doesn't apply to the man or woman, then everything that they've done in that court eviscerates all, right? Fraud eviscerates all, and the incorrect jurisdiction. That's when you take a step back and you want to understand the big picture. Every single court case that's been going on for the last 200 years has been in the wrong jurisdiction.
Right.
Right. That's how big this is.
Okay.
Right. But we can correct it. It's very simple. There's going to have to be forgiveness with all of this. But ultimately, right now, the only discussion we need to be having is that we've been lied to, that people have been murdered. Genocide is occurring around this world because COVID-19 SARS-2 is a lie. And we have the evidence of that. And we require access to that public courthouse to move our claim in that court, that truth, into the light for the world to see. And when that truth is brought forward, Gabe, it's over.
Yeah, that's what it seems to me as well. So it's nice to see how different pieces are actually coming together at the same time. It's almost like it's a divine plan or something like that. So we'll see how it unfolds over time. So I want to move into the virus thing after, but just before a couple of things. So let's finish maybe the whole basic the solution and your whole work with another maybe example and see the quickest way to explain that, right? For example, you said about the highway law, the system or stuff like that. So you go in your car, you exceed the speed limit, the police officer stops you, and then you know beforehand the work of Christopher James. You ask the 3 questions. They don't know what you're talking about or whatever, or they act.
Well, actually, hang on a second. You wouldn't ask the 3 questions there on the spot. See, remember, ignorance is the biggest enemy here. So that man that's pulling you over from the service corporation is supposed to be providing. He doesn't know the difference between legal and lawful, first and foremost. Right. So I always say to him, good day. And that's why you have your ID created ahead of time, which I have. I hand him my ID, my correct ID, and I tell him I'm not operating under a license at this time.
So your ID will be the parallel or the equivalent of the paperwork that you sent to the court prior, for example. So you have your ID and you can show it to the officer, which is the first thing. So it identifies you, right?
Yeah, I should have had it here for you when I was starting out here.
No problem.
Sorry. It's my if you go on my website, sorry about that. If you go on my website, okay. It's out in the truck. If you go on my website, because that's where I keep it, right? In case I ever get pulled over. When you go to my website, what you have to acquire, and again, at the end of the day, you have to show that who they're dealing with at the side of the road. And that's why you get the statement of birth, right? Statement of live birth, as it's called in Ontario here. And I go through that again. That's on my 4 foundational knowledge videos. Just watch that and the people will see. And then you learn how to create your own correct ID. Remember, he who creates owns and controls. Did you create the birth certificate? No. Did you create the driver's license? Another word I got to touch on here powerfully and quickly, I'm glad you brought it up, is registration. You never, a man or woman never, ever, ever, ever registers anything. The second that you register something, you're turning over jurisdiction control of that property to somebody else. So all you people that go and buy these beautiful 50, 60, $100,000 cars, right? The second that you have that dealership create that registration and send it into the government, you've just turned over ownership of your property to the government. They own it. That's why you go and look on the driver's license. You see your name is in all capital letters. That's a corporation, right? Capitis diminutio. In Roman law, right? It says that through the use of capitalization, it's a diminishing of the capacity of a man or a woman in law. So you look at your birth certificate, you look at your social insurance number, you look at the health card number, you look at anything with your, the government's given you in your ID, you're always going to see your name is in all capital letters, and it's going to be in different configurations. That's the hardest part for people to understand, that that's not you. That's a separate corporation.
Do you agree with the concept that it becomes like kind of a franchise, right? So you're like a franchise of the municipality corporation, of the provincial in Canada, and then of the national corporation? Is that how you see it as well?
Yeah, it's their property. They created it, right? So when I was born, they created a corporation in my name. If you could look at it as a franchise, and then that franchise is bound by all the rules and codes and statutes like a franchise
of the mother corporation,
which is Ontario and then Canada. Exactly. That's the legal realm. That shows you the fraud that's been committed because you were never given full disclosure of this, what's occurring with this documentation.
Yeah,
Had you given it,
that's the
you
other
would never
thing,
accept
right?
it.
Because the natural, or let's say common law, or for me personally, how I see it, and that's where I want to go after that when we get into the science and the full image comedy as well. So for me, like it's all the same, or all different ways to understand natural law, which is the physics for me, like how I see the geometry of the universe, how the universe works. So the scientific method, right, represents the way the universe works. So how consciousness evolves into the medium of the vacuum, which would be the ether. And how it works is in the scientific method, you need to have the access to the raw data, right? So you need to have transparency, because if different points of view, which would be different groups of researchers, for example, in the more university academic way, can have access to the same raw data and perform their experiments to confirm, then we can't get right to the truth. So in the same way, in the real world, if we can have access to the information, then it's not transparent, so we can't know what's the reality there. So it's kind of just the same thing in different lenses for me. Like that's how I see it. So that's awesome. So you first and foremost, you always create your own identification. So for example, when you get arrested on the side of the road, you can already show your identification, which is not the same thing as your person or legal person that was created without your own informed consent when you were born, as you said. So in French, here is the numéro d'assurance sociale, so the social security number in English. So this is like the number attached to your legal person. So you create your own identification, you showed it to the officer, and let's say he doesn't want to consider that. He said it's the gibberish. It's not working.
That's fine.
So and
That's
he wants to give you
You'll
a
see him
ticket,
in
and he
court.
wants to arrest you or something like that. So what would be your reaction in that situation?
Well, I've been pulled over many times. Well, not many times, but enough times. It never leads to, they tried to take my property once at the side of the road. I didn't allow them to do that. But you just stand your ground honorably and accept any and all tickets that you're going to give me, that you're going to write me up under the condition that it's based upon a contract, or that there's a verified claim I've trespassed causing wrong or harm against a man or woman, right? You don't even have to get into the whole legal lawful stuff with them. Just you don't want that man or woman on the side of the road to be put in danger, especially if it's a traffic stop. So as long as you provide them, you don't give them the driver's license, and you can have a driver's license. Remember, they always tell you what is the benefits and privileges you're supposed to get with this driver's license. Well, there are benefits and privileges to it. What are one of them? Well, if I need to go rent a car, I can use that driver's license, and the service corporation is going to give me a car. That's a great benefit privilege. Love it. Perfect. Or if I got to go to Home Depot and rent some tools, they use the driver's license. That's great. Other than that, I don't operate under that driver's license. I don't need to. So that's how you have to simply address it on the side of the road, so that these people you're also educating, but unfortunately it gets into a lot of conflict, and a lot of these, At the end of the day, the big picture of this that we're talking about, Gabe, all of this stuff is going to go away. People don't need to, I don't want people to start going to learning how to create their own ID and stuff now. I was doing that 5-10 years ago, right? We've gone past that time right now. We're at the point now where the simple truth we've talked about, the difference between legal and lawful, and those 3 questions, this is what's going to be wielded out into a court. And once this is shown to be true, then these service corporations are going to have to go back and they're going to correct all the titles and the records themselves.
So you're saying that there's like we're at the step now where there needs to be like a major moment, and there's going to be, that's kind of the only solution where we're at. It's like we're at the end of down a funnel, and that major moment will have like a ripple effect that will be like quite fast, in your opinion.
Yes, very fast. It will go around the world because it's the same truth. Every man and woman has had the same trespass, Gabe, occur against them when they're born in hospital. Yes?
Right.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So that trespass. So then when you understand what has gone on there, now you look to the public courthouse and you understand what's been going on in the public courthouse. Of course, prior to that, you understand those 3 questions, that we are not property of any man or woman. Right. We don't, unless we have a contract with them privately or the service corporation they represent, then nothing that they say to us, nothing they put pen to paper. They cannot like us. They can say all types of horrible things about us. That's fine. You heard of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never, harm me. That's what I grew up on as a kid, that little time of melody. And we don't hear that anymore. And that's the truth of law, right? People can have opinions, though they don't like, they can complain all they like about what I'm doing. Unless I'm trespassing, causing them wrong or harm, then they have no business engaging with me. And that's how it's supposed to be for the police, unless they've got a verified claim. Of, for example, if you're on the highway and you've been swerving all over the highway and it looks like you're drunk or something, of course, that's what the police are there to do, to protect and serve. But you may have been having a heart attack, a stroke. You just don't know until you get involved in that, capacity. And just so you know, it's about a 50-50 now that's been going on with me whenever I got pulled over by these people that work for service corporations. They're starting to learn this truth. So when I hand them my ID, they look at it, I say, I'm not operating a license time. They say, we understand, Christopher, have a great day. And they let me go. Right. Yeah. No harm, no foul. Because see, in their Police Services Act, they're not allowed to put their lights on unless there's an emergency. So you can start to turn it around on them. Look that up. So what are you doing putting your lights on, pulling me over, Bob or Susie? Was there an emergency? No, well, you've just breached your own police act. Right. And just like at McDonald's, if they give you an order, if they're going to be confrontational,
that was my next question. The order.
Yeah,
thing.
If they say, get out of the car, whatever. The other thing you have with your ID at that time is your fee schedule, because this is how simple it is. No man or woman can be ordered to do anything without being duly and justly compensated for the order if they carry it out. If you go to McDonald's, I always use that McDonald's or Burger King, and you place an order at the window for fries and a Big Mac, and you wait a few seconds, all of a sudden that order gets brought to you. It's been executed. Well, what comes next? The bill. You got to pay that bill. So you just go ahead and take a record of the side of the road. If the man's ordering you out of the car, if he puts handcuffs on you, if they put you in the back of the car, if they take you down to a precinct. That happened to a guy up here in Peterborough in Canada about 5 years ago. Fortunately, he was drunk driving. He got charged with impaired, but he had marijuana on him, and he just wrote down all the orders they gave him, from thumbprinting and everything all the way. So when he finally got released after 2 days, he went home, he wrote up his bill, and he took it back to the chief of police and handed it to them. Before he even got home, the Crown Attorney's office had contacted him that all the charges have been dropped. See, nobody can tell you how much you can charge, right? I can seem like an idiot, doesn't matter. But if you order me to do something and I do it under duress, and I told you that my fee for doing that is $1 million, then you're going to be held accountable in a court of law. So see, this is what the lawyers they recognize. Oh shit, if we give orders to these people and they carry them out, they're allowed to be fairly and duly and justly compensated because we're not under their jurisdiction when they're doing it. See, it always comes back to the control. Did they have that jurisdiction, that control to be trespassing against you using all these legal codes, rules, and statutes, highway traffic acts? And just so you know, the speed signs that you see on the side of the road, the white ones, they're commercial. They only apply to commercial vehicles, trucks, buses. Right? They don't apply to we the people. People don't understand that separation. Again, that's splitting hairs and stuff. But at the end of the day,
unless I get you're registered, right? So that probably has difference, right? So if you're registered, then you relinquished your.
Yeah, see, that's the part that they've got. So what you all need to do is deregister. You can do that now. Start deregistering your property, your vehicles, your property back into your control. You write a letter to the Minister of Transportation. You say, I'm rescinding any and all presumed or in place contracts surrounding my property, and you show them a picture of it, right? That has the VIN number, whatever. I require that this is removed from your system. I no longer wish any of the benefits or services that you're offering. See how simple that is?
Yeah.
And then they can't pull you over at the side of the road saying that they have control and jurisdiction over you because you did not it's like when you register, if you registered to play hockey and then you show up at the hockey arena, and of course you've got all these rules that you've got to abide by when you're on the ice for the league you're in. Well, of course, imagine you walk out onto the ice and you start fighting with people, right? Or throw the puck offside. Well, you're in their rule world, you're breaching the rules, right? There's a penalty for that. But that's what I mean. That's when it's registered, and anything that's registered, you have to, for soccer or football, it's no different. If you're going to register something and you're going to stand under that registration in the real world and act as that person for their benefits and privileges that they give back to you, then you're bound by that. But it's very simple to stand outside of that, saying, no, thank you. I don't wish to have any of your benefits and privileges you're offering from your service corporation, be it Ontario, Quebec. So you got to get that in your head. Quebec is a service corporation. It's not a government by and for the people. Right. It's a service corporation masquerading as if it's by and for the people. And that's why everybody sees that they're not protecting the people, because they're not there to protect the people. They're there to take us down. Right. And this is how you fight back very powerfully and very succinctly. Imagine if I had Justin Trudeau in court, right, and the whole world could see it, and I ask him those 3 questions. Everyone's going to realize that he has no jurisdiction over me. He never did. Whether he acts as a prime minister or as a man, and that applies to every agent and officer right across the vast tentacles of the crown corporations. It applies at the municipal level, the provincial level, the federal level. And once our fellow man gets that, it's like, oh my God, what have these people been doing? But then you have to be able to provide them the solution moving forward also honorably. And that's what I do. But as my grandfather always said, Gabe, you can't put the cart before the horse. So the first process we're having right now is we're having a very simple, powerful conversation. People are learning the difference between legal and lawful. They're understanding what it means to be a man or a woman, and that you're not a person. And you understand these are service corporations that are operating on our lands. When you understand those foundational core pillars, then you're able to move forward to the next stage to seek remedy and a solution to correct all this wrong and harm.
Right. So let's switch gears a little bit for the last maybe 30 minutes. And let me ask you first about Quebec, right? So we speak French, the majority, of course. We have our minority historical Anglophone communities and everything, and the immigrants. But let's say for the case that we're a French-speaking province majoritarily. So first of all, in your history, your background, did you have already interactions with people here? Did you translate stuff? So is there any references in the past of your work that is already in French out there? Because I haven't researched people here that would already be in contact with you, so I'm not even sure of your history with our province.
Yeah, there's some people that have reached out to me over the past several years to try and, again, we're at a different stage now than we were several years ago. Now this truth is very succinctly and powerfully coming forward. See, Quebec is under statute code. It's like France. France doesn't have common law. The country France, it's strictly statutes and codes, right? You are recognized only as a person, as a slave, as a citizen. That's what that word means. Citizen is a slave, right, to the system. So that got brought over. That's why Quebec stands outside of the other provinces in their jurisdiction, right? That's all this conflict that we've had here. But at the end of the day, the people that were born on the land in Quebec, okay, those same 3 questions apply to them. They apply to all these people wearing the black robes. So I don't think there's too much. There might have been some people that have tried to translate some of my work in the past, but it's what is happening right now, Gabe, that we're doing here. It's the most important thing. Those 3 questions, knowing that they're service corporations and seeing the solution at the public courthouse and that COVID-19 was a lie. Those handful of core truths, that's all that everyone needs to discuss right now, and it will eradicate everything else. And then we can correct all these horrific things, because the people in Quebec are wonderful. You guys were being made the whipping boy of this country first and foremost when this shit started. And now it's eased off a bit, but still draconian measures are coming down on all the people in the various different provinces. And this is how we stop it.
So let's go back to Quebec a little bit, because I have 2 more questions. And the first one would be, there's difference also in languages, right? So, and the meaning of the words and stuff like that, because beforehand I was trying to just try to translate a bit of a few words here and there and see how it works. And for example, like legal in English, it's légal en français or in French, but lawful translates the same. It still translates as legal in French. So we have kind of some discrepancies here. So do you think that we have to unite around the English language in order to enact your solutions, or is there a way to translate that we would have the same meaning in French as you have with your solutions in English? So did you even think about how it could work?
I didn't think about that. You said it now, but the solution's simple. You don't use the words like legal or lawful. You use the very powerful word property. Property is the same word in Quebec and French as it is in Canada here. Everybody understands property. See, and now you apply it to those 3 questions. The contract. That's all you have to do. We have to get away from this mindset that there's some sort of, legal or lawful process that we have to do. No, if you've been trespassed upon out here in the public, you have a right to move that claim, and it's categorically written correctly in a claim on a piece of paper that gets filed. Because what is that claim? It's your property. See how that word always comes up? So who in that courthouse can administrate property without right? Nobody can. That's your property. Don't touch it. You're going to move that process forward and see a jury of my peers, and they will decide if my property was trespassed upon. See how simple that is?
All right. Sounds good. Okay.
Always that, brother. It's always property, trespass, and who.
Cool. So let me then move into another question, which is kind of a deeper question, but it's very important for our history in Canada and especially in Quebec. So you were speaking about Pierre Trudeau before, the father of Justin. And of course, you remember everything that happened in the 1970s, because we just had like a big flashback like a week ago with his son declaring the War Measures Act, which is just the new term under the Emergencies Act. So that's very fascinating what's happening right now, of course, in that whole perspective. But what happened, in the 1970s, when Pierre Trudeau declared the War Measures Act, it was because of the FLQ in Quebec, and we had a whole thing here between the 65 and 75 around these years, which was called the Quiet Revolution. And what we did here in Quebec as a people is we were, of course, extremely controlled by a different thing, right? Of course, the government, the monarchy, the English elites, the bourgeois, which were the English people, which were always at the top level positions, controlling the majority of the assets in Quebec. But as well, there was the Catholic religion, and it brought us a lot of good stuff over time, because it allowed us to stay together and have communities and great value systems, right? So the God-given, right, let's say the commandments and stuff like that. So it was great. But on the other side, it was really difficult, because it was really rigorous. It was really hard on us, and it really controlled us as people, and it kept us in a lower, I guess, state of consciousness, or even of education generally. So what we did in the 10 years period, let's say, of the Quiet Revolution, we separated us from the whole institution of religion, and we separated school from that everywhere as well, and in different spaces of our societies. But we also did it in the consciousness as well. So, for example, we really detached ourselves from the religion aspect or the spiritual aspect of religion, right? So as people, right, after the baby boom, right, so the people that are now maybe between 60 and 75 or something like that, the baby boomers, the boomers as we call them here, and I guess it's a known term everywhere. So they enacted that revolution. They separated themselves from religion in a very strong and quick way. But as a consequence, people here now are ridiculizing the idea of God a lot. Science has taken hold of our collective ethos or collective consciousness. And there's a lot of atheism. We have the laicity here as well, separating the religion from the public spheres. So there's a question I want to ask you about: how can people understand like the natural law, like the God-given rights, when they are in that state of mind, right? So for us, we're laughing about God, like as a society. So how can you make people understand that we have inherent qualities? And because it's I'm sure you understand where I'm going, and my question is kind of rambling about, but I'm going on a rant. But people don't understand here that we can have like innate or inherent rights given by just the cosmos or God or whatever it is. So is there a way that you can explain that to people that make maybe more rational sense or something like that?
Yeah, it's really simple. When we come into this world, as we talked about earlier, we're all created equal, and you can remove the God aspect, whether you're an atheist or not. You do know in your heart and your mind and your soul that you are not property of another man or woman, and you should know that contract makes the law between you.
But you say, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but as soon as you're, because I'm just self-conscious of the people here, right? I'm trying to try to build some bridges, and as soon as you put the word soul in there, like it's God and it's bullshit, right? So it's really like we're traumatized, like multi-generation of traumas here. So I'm trying to understand if there's a way, like to even understand that, even when we, or maybe so even when we don't use words as soul, or on the other way to make people understand that we do have a soul and that we've been traumatized and we've been manipulated into not believing in this anymore, right? So there's different ways to approach this. So sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to tell you, like, we're traumatized here as a society about that.
Yeah, that's been part of the plan too, right? To rip the whole consciousness of God. And I don't pretend to know what God is. I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. Right. I believe religion was used to, again, divide and conquer around the world. You've got all these various religions and people, but for the man or woman that's not, shall we say, religious or spiritual, they should know that they're not property of another man or woman. That's got nothing to do with religion. And they should know that if we're all born free and we're equal under the law, then the only way you should ever be brought into a court is if you've trespassed, causing wrong or harm against a man or woman, or there's a contract you're in breach of. That's the simplest way to explain it to people. And they need to realize that those same truths apply to all these people that are acting in all these roles around us in our world today. It doesn't matter of the title they've been given, premier, president, right? CEO, whatever. They are simply your fellow man and woman, and they've got to answer yes, Gabe, to those three questions. That's the foundational question that people can hopefully learn, because what we're talking about here is, as you said, takes people to a higher level of consciousness, to recognizing that there's something very great, vast that's going on around us that we've been lied to on every single front in our lives, and that's why I know we're going to get into it, but I'll just say this, water finds level. Okay.
Yeah.
So 80% of this so-called ball has got water clinging to it as it's supposed to be spinning around in outer space and traveling around the sun. Wake up, people. It's the biggest lie we've ever been fed in our world. Right.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, cool.
It's just right. And again, we've lost our critical thinking, Gabe. This is the problem. Everybody can see that water finds level. Are you telling me that it's wrapped around a ball and that they can't even measure supposedly gravity? But gravity is so smart. It's so intelligent. It can allow a fly or a mouse or whatever to fly or float or operate all, jump above the land, but it can keep this vast quadrillions of gallons of water clinging to a ball. Stop and think about it. The Suez Canal, the longest canal in the world. You ask the engineers, how did you compensate for the, NASA's, I wasn't going to get into this, but the curvature of the earth is for every mile and a half squared, the earth is supposed to curve 8 inches. That's off NASA's own website. Yep. So you asked they asked the engineers of the Suez Canal, how did you allow for this, alleviate this in your calculations? They said, we didn't. We just built straight. And that's what you need to understand. And that's what I mean. See, they get you right from the beginning. Right? You're not supposed to know who you are. You're not supposed to have a clue where you were born on this earth, and you're not to have a clue to understand where the solution lies. These have been put over mankind's consciousness from the very first moment. You go into a kindergarten school when you're young, right? When they got there, the globe of the earth, right? They're hammering you right from the get-go that this is how the world is, right? But that's why I look at Eric von Braun. He was the missile specialist that Kennedy brought over that launched NASA. And all you have to do is go and look on his tombstone. The man's passed away. And he puts in there Genesis, whatever it is. But when you look it up, it says, and after the 3rd or 7th day, God looked back upon the firmament upon which he created. Well, firmament means dome, right? I know we're getting off topic here, but it's so deep once you get into it, man.
That's all my the thing that I understand most, right? That's where I'm focused on. It's all the whole physics, right? So the physics touches about anything, so touches everything. So it's awesome. And actually, let's move a bit more into the science. So thank you very much for addressing my questions and going as the. So you're good for another 15 minutes or something like that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
We're good, brother.
All right. So let's get into the Filmich committee, and I want to hear you speak about this a little bit, because I've heard, because of course, as you understand that the whole legal system, the whole lawyers thing is a problem, right? But on the other hand, I heard in your last streams that you understood that the way he was doing it seems to be very interesting in the end. Plus, you saw the positive aspects of the whole history that was brought up by not Alex, but Matt and the other guy, which I forget his name as well, in the second day, I think, of the committee. So what's your overall feeling about Filmich? Because I want to link it with the whole virus isolation thing, because I don't know if you listened to the Stephen Lenka and Andrew Kaufman's presentation that they did like 2 weeks ago. That's before I interviewed Christine Massey. So they were not very scientific and open-minded about their presentation, right? So I spoke about it with Christine. We had the same conclusions. Their counter-arguments were not scientific. Filmich seemed to be like in and out of it. He seemed to be just like basically receiving the information and not putting back opinions about that. And in the end, they kind of said, all right, we're still going to pursue on our way with the PCR tests and trying to prove in that the whole pandemic was planned and fake with the tests. But on the other way, they said just like there's a way to perceive it, that they just put the whole virus isolation thing in a small box. And that's what I said to Christine. I said, for me, there's two ways to see it. One way, it's like, okay, like do your thing. We're going to do our thing. And we need all the angles that we can to show the world that there's a major problem with the pandemic. On the other way, we could see it maybe that they put like the virus isolation thing in a small box and they just brushed it to the side. And they kind of, in that, the consequence could be that no one's going to care about this, because Fulmich and his committee, they have the whole momentum. They have a lot of people following them. They have money and the power of the mass consciousness behind them, supporting them. So, like, let's say today, February 21st, what's your impression about the virus thing in relationship to the committee and the overall committee in itself?
The bottom line is that, yes, truth is always the first casualty in war, and that's a big truth, right? This whole virology, this whole isolation purification, that's as big as the difference between legal and lawful, right? That how man's been compromised since birth. So I understand why within the medical system, some people don't want to go down that road, but I'll touch to Rainer Fulmich is that when he first started this, I was all over him over a year ago. I'm like, what the hell you doing, taking all this time? I mean, you guys have got all the evidence now to move your claims in courts in there. And finally, 3 weeks ago, that's why I was always sitting on the fence with him. He was doing a lot of incredible work, a lot of heavy lifting, bringing all these various truths from these various different capacities surrounding this colossal lie out. But then at the end of the day, he was operating in this legal realm. And I wrote to them, I said, there's no way in hell I'm going to let you move this out into the light in a legal capacity. But 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, we put up online, he's saying that the judiciary system is completely corrupt. There is no solution for us in the current court structure, which I was like, all right, the guy's finally coming on the mat with this. He says, we, the people, have to correct our correct judiciary. And he's absolutely right. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And then when I saw the work that he did, when I saw his opening line, and I jumped right to grand jury day 2, because I wanted to hear those first 2 guys speak. My jaw was on the ground because I studied all this stuff for years and I was learning other key nuggets, but the depths and the professionalism and the simplicity of how those 2 people, Matthew rolled it out and the gentleman before him, that's what the whole world needs to see. So first and foremost, I wasn't on side with Rainer, what he was doing. Now I'm 100% behind all his efforts that he's doing, because this is just being brought out in the public right now for everyone to see. He's telling everybody we still have to correct our public courthouses. We've got to bring all this truth and get it properly in a courthouse, even though they're modeling after a grand jury in the United States, which we don't have in Canada, which is something that I'm going to look to implement when I do. So we're at the stage now, if I can merge with what Reiner's doing, I'm providing the vehicle very powerfully into our public courthouses now correctly, because you have to have the enforcement side of it. And that's what all these thousands of police officers are going to represent. They'll represent the enforcement, that if anybody in that courthouse tries to prevent us or block us from moving our claim in court in this truth that is of enormous magnitude of genocide occurring, they're going to be arrested right on the spot. So I'm confident, like I take my hat off to Reimer. That's how I feel about it. The information and that, yes, you know, they talk about different things. It's like arguing about the Emergencies Act that Justin Trudeau's done, or do you want to discuss that he has no jurisdiction over you or any man or woman that created that documentation? That's the easier one to address, rather than getting into this whole soup of all this legal terms and processes and votes in House of Parliament, whether it's going to be ratified and all these bills, C-16. So he's trying to come up with some bill, I think it's Bill 16 or 56 or something now that they're voting on next week. Whereas if he passes it, guys like me and you, we're going to be banned from being online.
Yeah.
Right. See, this is what they're doing. So that always comes back to that solution. How do you fight this solution? It's at that courthouse. You get these people arrested and you stop them. So I love Rainer Fulmich. I have 150% support behind him, what he's doing right now, because I've seen the incredible work that he's brought out, even though it's not quite exactly right, but he's doing enormous lifting for the world. And then together we'll go to that next stage to get that into a public courthouse.
All right. So let's bridge it with Rocco Galati here in Canada. It is my understanding, but I haven't researched that topic as much, that Rocco Galati has been kind of spearheading the Canadian movement, right, around. And kind of, I don't know how related they are with Fulmich, but it's kind of an arm of Fulmich, like they're kind of in a kind of distant relationship there. And all the provinces have also different actions that are taken. Here in Quebec, we have the guy's name is Stéphane Blais. The foundation is called la Fondation pour les droits et libertés du peuple, for the freedoms and liberties of the people. So this guy is in relationship with Rocco Galati, and it's my understanding that Rocco is kind of working at a distance relationship with Phil Mitch a little bit. So from my perspective, like what happened here, like because I know like the guy Stéphane Blais here in Quebec with the foundation, the provincial arm of associated distantly with Rocco Galati. They knew like in 2020, like in the early fall in 2020 about Kaufman and the virology thing. And at one point, and even our alternative media here, we have a guy his name is Alexis Cossette-Trudel. He was like the son of like an old FLQ guy. He has a YouTube presence. It's called Radio Quebec, like Radio Quebec. And he's gathering like every week, like 100 to 200,000 people from all the French people speaking around the world. And he spoke about that as well in 2020. But at one point, they all stopped talking about it together at the same time as Phil Mitch did. So for me, I have two solutions. Like either they strategize and they all pass the word behind the doors, like let's stop talking about it to just make sure that people wake up, and then we're going to come back with that truth at the end. So it's like would be positive, or it's another thing, and it's like it's a whole distraction, and this whole thing might be like manipulating us and to veering our attention away from the truth of the science, which is because the science, in my perspective, it's the truth. It's the only thing that matters in the end, because this is how we understand how consciousness works, and the importance of belief. Because if it's the link about the whole perception of the realm or the world, how it is, because what we believe we create, that's how it works. Like the mechanics of the universe, that's how it works. So if we don't understand the science properly, we're never going to create the best reality that we can, because we're going to be stuck in the wrong paradigm, which is the limited resources, and then we have to stop technology and stop development and stuff like that. So it's really like, that's why Matt Ehret is very important, because he understands the two political system in relationship to the two different scientific views of the world, right? The open systems with the unlimited abundance, and the closed system, the Malthusian stuff, and the limited resources and the constant growth of the population. So what do you feel about that? So did you notice that at one point all the legal people stopped talking about the virus isolation thing? And do you think it's positive because they put it on the side to come back with it, or do you think like they're distracting us from the real truth?
I think it's the second part. And just so everyone knows, Rocco Galati first started out as a tax lawyer. So he was committing massive theft and fraud against the people through their ignorance. Then he moved on to be a constitutional lawyer, and there is no constitution that in the corporate world of Canada was actually ratified correctly. So Rocco Galati, and I heard he had a fallout with Reiner Fuellmich. That's what I heard. They had a fallout with each other because they disagreed heavily on something, because Rocco would not be doing what Reiner Fuellmich is doing in this country. So Rocco Galati has been a deceiver in this country. He did it with the Bank of Canada action that he was rolling forward. He let it go all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. When I told him back in December of 2011, I said, Rocco, what are you doing? I'm saying, they're just going to run this up to the Supreme Court of Canada. I said, you need to bring the truth out surrounding what's going on between the difference between legal and lawful. And whenever anyone brought up that trespass that occurs against us when we're born, he poo-pooed on it. He said, that's just nonsense. See, he's part of this bar. He's part of this system, right? That's why he was in bed really tightly with Paul, what's his name, on the Privy Council. I forgot his name.
But I know what you're talking, the Privy. I don't remember.
Yeah. So see, he was right in there with the Privy Council that was involved with originally the Bank of Canada lawsuit. Then they went to the CETA lawsuit, all these things that they're supposed to do. And when people look up that lawsuit with the Bank of Canada, it went to the Supreme Court of Canada. And guess what they came back with their so-called ruling? It was down to one word, Gabe, one word, may. The Bank of Canada may use that option to provide interest-free loans to the province. Are you kidding me? They did it from 34 to 74. Right. And all of a sudden the word you're using may, and they said, this really not in our jurisdiction. It's a political matter. So see, they turn the bucket around all the way. And then Rocco just throws his hands up and goes right away from it. He was getting $1,000 to $1,500 from every police officer in Toronto when he was trying to represent them. He's the guy that's locked down, like Stand on Guard for Thee. That's supposed to be this police group. They might as well be called Stand on Guard for Me, because they haven't done a damn thing in 2 years. They've sat on their ass, and Rocco's basically silenced all of them. First with a 291 page claim, and then he put in a 390 something page claim in August of this year, or complaint into their private court systems again. Where has it gone? Nowhere. Where is it going to go? Nowhere. Right? It's all a dog and pony show. And that's why people need to realize what Rocco Galati's done is a huge disservice. And he knows this stuff. He's intentionally misleading the people. Let those deceive be deceived. That's a maxim in law. And that's what he's applying to the people. But the police are waking up now. They're understanding what Rocco's been doing. He's been doing nothing. They're like, we gave you all this money. See, he was looking for 500,000 to $1 million to carry those actions forward to correct all this wrong and harm that's occurring in these massive
our guy
pages.
Here, Stéphane Blais, like people gave him like almost $1 million, like just here in the province, because at the beginning he was interacting a lot with Rocco Galati and everything, but not so much, I guess, over the last few months. So I don't know if it's related, because he's also got the French scientists, right? Like Henri Claude, I'm sorry, I'm just have the French name, but they're going to appear on the Filmage comedy as well. So like our guy here is kind of in between, I guess, the two. So I don't know what's his position with Galati, if he distanced himself from him or not. So your opinion is that Filmage and Galati are not related, so they had a feud or something?
No, I think they've had a fallout. And the thing I would say about this lawyer that's doing this, he asked for millions of dollars to do it. I'll do it for a freaking cup of coffee. It's 4 questions. See, we don't put the cart before the horse. The first thing we've got to address here is our relationship with every man and woman in this world. Who has jurisdiction over us in any capacity they act at or not? They don't. That's the foundational conversation we have to have first. From there, then you can understand how it applies and works in the court systems. From there, you can understand how we create our monetary system that's by and for the people, right? So that's what I'm saying. They've got all these hundreds of pages, 391 pages in Rocco's last claim. Mine's 4 questions into the court. The first 3 of the contracts are my property, and the last one is produce the evidence that COVID-19 SARS-2 was purified. What do I need hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that for? That truth gets brought out into the light, that claim, and it gets answered and shown to the world. That's all that needs to be done, right? It's all that needs to be done. And that's what lawyers do. They're all about, creating conflict. They're all about, because more conflict that there is than looking at appeal processes. And, they just continually cha-ching, 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 cha-ching to take money from you. When you realize no man or woman ever uses a lawyer. Never should use a lawyer. And unfortunately, some of these lawyers are so brainwashed in what they've been taught all their years. But I hold no, like I said, what Rocco's done, he knows damn well what he's doing, because I've talked to him enough about it. Other people have sent him the truth of the information. And that whole thing you touched on there with the virology, that it was not isolated and how they kind of pushed that aside. To me, that's a tell. Why would you want to get into all this other nonsense? See what I'm saying?
Filmage did as well, right? So that's the difference, right? So they all did it at the same time, right? Pretty much, like over a few weeks, something like that. So the real question is what's going on with Filmage in this way. So you endorse him, like in what he's doing, and maybe the virus thing is going to come back at the end.
It is. It's the same thing like with us, right? We all have to go through this process of not knowing the difference between legal and lawful. Exactly. We've all been fed all this crap. Well, then finally this truth gets rolled out. The 3 questions I talk about, it's going to elevate our consciousness level. And then that's going to be brought in properly on top of all this garbage and destroy it. Same thing's going to happen with what Reimer's doing. A lot of the information they're bringing forward, I'd say 95% of it is incredible. It's all truthful. It's that one little area that they're wavering on, with the PCR tests, and that shouldn't even be a conversation. But we should talk about that. Those PCR tests could basically, predict a ham sandwich, anything you wanted. So it's important that we just get this truth in the conversation helping out, because the people that he's brought into those courts, all the doctors and that, they don't always necessarily agree with each other, but the knowledge and the truth they're bringing forward, that's the most important thing right now. And then we'll come on top of it with the virology and the power of that truth, that it's all been based on fraud to begin with. And that will be the final nail in the coffin for them. So.
Awesome. Well, I really want to let you go. So if I gather like 1,000 cups here in Quebec, you're going to come here and get into
absolutely, brother. I'll go wherever it has to go. And that's, I mean, we've got so many police officers in this country. They know what's happening is wrong, but they're scared to stand up because they're afraid of losing their job. They don't realize we have something more important than our jobs on the live right now. We have humanity. We have our future. This is of biblical proportions, what's going on. Even if you're not religious, you got to realize that something is very wrong that's happening in our world. And if it does not get stopped and addressed, then we are looking at an entire enslavement of this world and our country, and we must stop it. And that's how we do it peacefully and properly. That's why those courthouses are there, Gabe, because people died in the First and Second World Wars that believed they were fighting for freedom. Well, that's what those courthouses represent for us. It's not a private playpen for people from a society we do not belong to. It's a place where Gabe and Christopher are able to go and move a claim in court against any man or woman in this world Okay. If they've trespassed or we've got evidence that they're causing wrong or harm, that's what that courthouse is there for. And I need the police. It's one day, that's all it will take. Once those warrants go out for their arrest and these people get brought into the courthouses and those questions get asked, it's over, Gabe. And then we can get to what pickup where Fulmich is done. That's when we can really bring in the Dr. Judy Mikovich's, the Dr. David Martins with all their incredible knowledge and their truth and their evidence to really open up this can of worms to expose it. And then someone like Matthew, how do you pronounce his last name?
Ehret, A-E-R-E-T. Yeah.
Yeah, Matthew Ehret. You bring a guy like Matthew Ehret in, and then he can really start to bring in the whole system from a political aspect and a corporatized, how it got set up in the world. I was blown away with his knowledge of that man. And that's, I got to talk to him because he is incredible. I'd love to have him on my show.
Oh, you will. Yeah, I'll put you in touch right away. Awesome. Well, I appreciate these last words. And as you said, like the people fought and died for their supposed freedom. So now it's time maybe to gain our freedom, but for real and without fighting and without dying, but maybe with standing and claiming. I guess that would be the best way to approach that now. So it's time to move into a more peaceful way to resolve our conflicts and move forward. So Christopher, James, thank you so much. The website is awarriorcalls. Is it .com?
Yes.
awarriorcalls.com, and I'm going to put that in the show notes, of course, with the BitChute and the other places. And can you just tell in a few seconds what are the times of your live streams if people speak English and they want to listen to you?
Yeah, Monday and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Central Time.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. No, sorry.
That's all right, brother.
Just to wrap it up. Thank you, Christopher. That was awesome. So hopefully we'll see that day come soon where you can get into the public courthouse and free us all. Thank you.
It will, my friend, with people like you out there that are doing this incredible lifting as well. It's a matter of engaging. I say we've got to have this conversation first. That's the two trains that are racing, this evil train, if it's going to get done, or the train that's going to this public courthouse. And if we can get enough people in this country awake to the simple truth that we've talked about here today, it's going to be a wonderful time. So we have to get it done, and I'm confident we will, my friend.
All right. Let me just stop that recording. Thank you, sir. Et voilà tout le monde, justice naturelle, qu'en pensez-vous? Est-ce que c'est quelque chose qui existe? Ça fait-tu du sens? Qu'est-ce que Christopher James nous a partagé aujourd'hui? Ou si c'est un charabia de choses impossibles et complètement en lien avec les théoriciens de la conspiration qui se désinforment eux-mêmes entre un sous-groupe sur YouTube dans leur propre biais de confirmation? Laissez-moi savoir qu'est-ce que vous en pensez de votre côté, parce que bien sûr, dans le passé, qu'est-ce qu'on sait au Québec? Il y a tout le mouvement des gens souverains, des citoyens souverains, que ça s'est fait beaucoup démoniser au fil des dernières 2 décennies, peut-être dans les médias et tout ça. Alors, est-ce que ça s'est fait démoniser avec raison parce que ça n'avait pas de sens, ou est-ce que ça s'est fait démoniser parce que ça fait partie d'un aspect peut-être d'un certain contrôle médiatique du narratif et que finalement, ça fait du sens? Je ne le sais pas. On est dans l'hypothèse, bien sûr. On a juste fait étudier le point de vue de mon invité aujourd'hui, M. Christopher James, pour pouvoir considérer ça dans l'ensemble de nos connaissances, puis continuer à évoluer nous-mêmes, chacun dans notre petit univers à nous. Et c'est tout ce qu'on peut faire ici. Alors, voilà, si vous avez apprécié la saison, tout le monde, bien, je vous rappelle que dans la description, les commentaires, il peut y avoir des options pour les contributions si jamais le cœur résonne avec vous et que vous avez envie de me supporter pour la 2e saison. Donc, donation Gab Masson en un mot. Donation Gab Masson, DONATON, GABE-MA2SON @gmail.com. Si vous faites un virement Interac, le mot de passe franc, s'il vous plaît, FRANC en minuscule. Et finalement, paypal.me/Gab Masson, GABEMASSON. Voilà, merci beaucoup si jamais il y a des personnes qui ont décidé de faire une contribution. Et pour les autres, en fait, pour tout le monde et pour moi inclus, je vous dis bonne continuité, bon printemps à tous. Profitez de la chaleur si vous êtes ici au Québec, un peu plus dans l'hémisphère nord, bien sûr partout en francophonie. Profitez de l'été, faites le plein de vitamine D, de rayons de soleil. Sortez dehors sans souliers, allez vous grounder avec la nature un petit peu. Prenez soin de votre santé pour que vous soyez bien balancé à l'intérieur pour ensuite de ça agir et propager l'amour autant à l'intérieur qu'à l'extérieur dans vos propres vies et dans vos propres communautés. C'est évidemment en général le message de base que j'essaye de pouvoir transmettre ici au travers de mes invités et quelque chose que je crois moi-même profondément. Alors tout le monde, merci beaucoup. C'était la saison numéro 1 du podcast Dans le franc des yeux. Mon nom est Gab Masson et vous écoutiez Franc Masson. À la prochaine.